Especially visitors to this gathering hosted by the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bowling Green. I would like to encourage us all to be present, to actively listen. After all, you've made a commitment. You're here. You're on Zoom. You're watching on YouTube, or you're watching a replay on YouTube. You've made a commitment, so why not focus so that we can discover together? I would also like to ask those of you who are present here in this space to set your cell phones on silent so that we won't be interrupted. And it's also a nice courtesy for the speaker to not interrupt the speaker. We are a welcoming congregation, whoever you are, however you identify, wherever you come from, and whoever you love, you are welcome here. Our Sunday services are different each week so that we can honor and learn from our wide array of traditions and beliefs. Today, our speaker is Erica Hanner. You'll hear more about her right before she provides the message. Though we each walk our own path here in this place on the land of the Osage, the Cherokee, and the Shawnee, we journey together as one community. And now we will do our chalice lighting, which is a tradition in the UU. And Emerson Massengale will light our chalice, and Casey Hanner will have our opening reading. And after, I invite you to join in humming "Rise Up, O Flame."
Experience by Ralph Waldo Emerson. The lords of life, I saw them pass, in their own guise, like and unlike, portly and grim, use and surprise, surface and dream, secession swift and spectral wrong, temperament without a tongue, and the inventor of the game, omnipresent without name. Some to see, some to be guessed, they marched from east to west. Little man, least of all, among the legs of his guardians tall, walked about with a puzzled look, him by the hand dear nature took. Dearest nature, strong and kind, whispered, darling, never mind. Tomorrow they will wear another face, the founder though, these are thy race.
Thank you both. And now we will have a few moments for meditation, reflection, and prayer. The singing bowl will lead us into silence. After the silence, you are invited to join in the song, Spirit of Life. The words will be on the screen. That's some good humming there. My, how we adapt. As mentioned earlier, Unitarian Universalists have a wide array of beliefs, and the speakers at our Sunday services come from many traditions. Here to share her own thoughts today is Erica Hanner. Erica is a free-spirited mother and a supportive wife. She additionally is a nationally certified and licensed professional clinical counselor who specializes in trauma and addiction therapy. She graduated from Lindsey Wilson College. She enjoys a wide range of music, expressing herself through arts and crafts, connecting and helping her fellow humans. Welcome, Erica.
Let's see my parallel parking here. So, thank you for having me today. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, my experiences, and as the title of the message is, how I found freedom in my spirituality through suffering. So here I sit on my throne of vulnerability today. So I'm about to open up about some parts of me that have struggled to exist in the reality that we share together. I've spent so much of my life bearing some of the things that I'm about to talk about. Some of it I have talked about before, some of it I haven't. So bear with me. I may tear up, which is totally okay. I quote Viktor Frankl a lot in this because he has been one of my guiding forces through a lot of my struggles and strifes. And Viktor Frankl says, "There is no need to be ashamed of tears, for tears bore witness that man had the greatest courage, the courage to suffer." And that's something that's really stuck with me because I've spent so much of my time trying to not suffer that it's only caused me more suffering. So let me share my suffering in this place of unity and interconnectedness to challenge you to grow in your own understanding of suffering through my suffering. I will take time and paint you my thoughts and feelings as best as I am able to in this place, and how I found my own spiritual freedom through my accident, which has left me in this chair of vulnerability. January 17th, 2015, at 10 a.m. in the morning, I was out helping my sister. We were moving her into her very first apartment. It was a big sister moment. My dad let us borrow his big red truck, and we were moving a mattress from my house to my parents' house so we could take a mattress there and take it to her new place. So that's how we started off. We grabbed Taco Bell. We were having fun, good conversation. We hit a road that my parents' road is off of. And as we were going down the road, a little country highway, the mattress came out of the back of the truck. So it went into the ditch, pulled over as much as I could. Me and her jumped out, laughing at the experience that turned tragic very quickly. As we put the mattress back in the back of the truck, and my sister stood on the side of the ditch, and I stood on the side of the road trying to strap the mattress back down. An SUV going about 50 miles an hour slammed into the back of the truck where I was standing at. I remember all of it. very, very much remember every single second with some blurred understanding of what happened. I remember my sister trying to tell me something, but I couldn't understand what was going on because it happened so fast. If you've ever seen Rescue 911 back in the 90s, like, that was the most, like, I feel like my brain just interpreted that whole situation like an episode in Rescue 911. But I was completely cognizant through the whole thing. And I remember in this moment of panic that came across me, there was this overwhelming feeling, of I'm gonna die, you know? I had been pinned between the vehicles. The lady driving the SUV pulled back, and there I was. The truck hitch of the truck had embedded into my leg, my left leg. My right leg was still there, mangled, tangled, didn't look pretty, and I was dying. The pain, the pain was excruciating. It was intense. Though I would later find something else that was more painful than that down the road through surgeries and stuff, but that moment was the most intense pain I'd ever physically felt in my entire life. And I knew that my response was critical. I was bleeding out. I was turning cold. Viktor Frankl says, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." So I began to meditate, something I had picked up in college and in my practices in mindfulness. I began to meditate and my body began to relax. Tried to slow down the blood flow to give myself a chance at life. In the midst of this, a presence came to me. I began praying, but it was met with some resistance. Something greater than me, which I best can describe, kind of visited me, was a whisper in my mind. I felt warmth where I was feeling cold. And it laid in my heart, "You're gonna make it through," which was very nice in that moment of panic that I had previously been experiencing. So, was it God, Jesus, Allah? I don't know. Couldn't even tell you today. Nothing definitive for myself, but because who am I to know God, right? If you ask me, it kind of seemed egotistical to me for humans to claim to know and understand something of such power and grandeur. And in that moment, it didn't matter what I called or didn't call, because no earthly words or my own cognition really could capture the presence authentically. So I tend to use higher power, or I do favor the Cherokee Great Spirit. All I know is in that moment, I knew that I'm not alone. So let me back up to the beginning of my spiritual journey. So my spiritual journey started in religion. And I say that, and I'm going to talk a little bit between Christianity and Buddhism. And I'm speaking from my experience, not that it is definitive in these things. So I grew up in a Christian home that gave me a sense of understanding about a world, or heaven, however you want to identify, deny, or call it. But it kind of made life hell, because it was this promise of this place without pain, without suffering. And from a young age, I can remember just fantasizing about it and how I wanted to be in heaven and what it looked like and how I would feel or not feel. Just anything better than what I was experiencing. I kind of like become clouded, you could say, right? Heads in the cloud. In life, I found this comfort in this place that I would come to every Sunday, every Wednesday, anytime the church doors were open, my family was there. In Romans 8:28, it says, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose." I use this scripture because it's one I know when reflecting back on my early years that I kind of got hung up on. You see, things work together for good was taken at a young age to mean just that, good and happy things. But I found a lot of bad and negative things that had occurred in my life. I found suffering in the midst of life when I was present. As a child, I experienced sexual abuse at a young age, what led me to think negatively about myself. The world around me and everything in it just became this suffering experience. I developed this negative cognition of I am bad. So it's understanding why the young me found discord in myself in this belief. Even after repenting, becoming saved, I could never really shake that I am bad. And it kind of left me in this spiritual coma. So, of course, I went throughout my life, still continued, showed up to church, did everything I was supposed to, kind of just running through the motions. But in high school, I had a little bit of a spiritual awakening. My spirit was reawakened when I was serving out the last half of my junior year in alternative school. I had been, I gotten in a lot of trouble. I had gotten in trouble for distributing narcotics at the high school. So they sent me to the alternative school for the rest of the semester. Let me note that I was a AB student. I played sports. Came to a huge shock that this occurred for everybody. In fact, it was pretty hard for even like my principals and stuff to make this call to send me over to the alternative school. But I was suffering from depression, grief, loss, and the need to be loved, even if I was bad. The angst was high. I look back now and I think how so much irony, because I do work in addictions now, and how this part of my life, though did not end there, definitely some parts, but to keep on point, this is a part of my life that's pretty ironic. So I was forced into this like cubicle. We had to read outdated textbooks, which were very outdated, let me say that. But I was completing American literature, and there was a chapter dedicated to transcendentalism. And so I started reading, painstakingly going through it, but some things started picking up for me. So some things that were mentioned in there really drew interest, and I started writing down names of some of the authors and stuff, two of those being Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson. So after I wrote those names down, I started looking at wherever I could, just anything. I was feeling really lost, so there was this comfort. So is it so bad to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Jesus, and Luther, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh To be great is to be misunderstood. Ralph got me. I mean, what teenager didn't feel misunderstood? But in retrospect, how many of us adults still feel misunderstood? Right? After much suffering of my own, because childhood trauma was not enough, I struggled into my teens and early adulthood with domestic violence, more sexual trauma, more loss and grief of people near and dear to me. I needed guidance. I revisited Christianity and found some peace for a minute or two. But contradicting literature and actions of the church led me to explore outside the church for help. I started learning about lots of different religions and just kind of exploring on my own. And some people that I met, I had the opportunity to meet several people from many different backgrounds when I lived in Washington, D.C. And I just remember feeling jealous of the clarity people had. And I just didn't feel that. I wanted that. So the more and more I explored, everything started to kind of melt together and seem similar. It all began making sense and yet completely confusing. But I had this experience in my bachelor's degree in one of the classes I took. I had to do a life interview with someone, and I had to start from the beginning of their life, talk about death, religion, everything under the human existence. And so I chose my grandmother, my Granny Kim, and she was a devout Christian. And in this assignment, when we started talking about religion, I was very curious what she had to say. Very, very curious. And something that really stuck with me is she said, well, I guess if I was from China or something, I would believe in Buddha. And I can remember her in her little southern drawl saying Buddha. So she explained Christianity was what she was raised to believe, and she found comfort in this familiarity. But she acknowledged how she felt other faiths are just other understandings of what is greater than us. And it gave me a lot of peace because it was something that, I'd really struggled with. And she brought clarity in a place where I was feeling lost. And I always valued what she had to say. Let's see. I hit a button. There we go. So I kind of started turning into Buddhism, or turned towards Buddhism. I began to learn a little bit more in depth in college when I was first introduced to mindfulness, which is where I started meditating. Now, let me say, in Buddhism, mindfulness is practice, but mindfulness is not Buddhism. They can exist outside of each other. So I identified as Buddhist for a very long time, mostly to push away Christianity as much as I could because it was like a dirty word to me for a very long time because of some of the hurt and pain I went through, but that's a whole nother talk. Not to mention that concept of I'm bad was still very real and a negative cognition for me, so it just couldn't fit together. But I found a merger of these two faiths progressively in my studies while I was there. So in the middle of my bachelor's is when I had my accident. I was like a semester away from graduating when I had it. And so I missed one semester of college and went right back into it. In fact, I think I told my advisor like 12 times while I was in the hospital I needed to get back into school. She was like, you need to heal, you need to rest. And I was like, no, let's just start. I was not in a place to be able to do that. But I was dedicated and just really wanting to finish that. So So Buddha was present before Jesus, estimated about 500 years before. They were both in their 30s and had life-transforming spiritual experiences, which led them to find religious renewal movements. So now I'm not trying to start my own religion, but I'm definitely and feeling how 30 has given me a whole new perspective on life. So both taught people to relinquish desires and need for power, to let go and die from old ways of living. Both were adorned by followers and seen as partly divine. And at the end of the day, both emphasized on compassion, respecting enemies, and letting go of destructive ways. Buddha says, one who acts on truth is happy in the world and beyond. Jesus says, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. Buddha says, the one who has a well-trained mind is like one having a properly roofed house. Not rain or wind or desire, anger or illusion will penetrate his mind. Jesus says, if someone listens to me and practices my teachings, then he is like a person who builds a house on a great rock, because his house will not be destroyed either by flood or winds. So why Buddhism? Why did that stick and Christianity didn't, right? I was drawn to Buddhism because Christianity, the Christianity I grew up with, only taught me to dissociate from the reality that was around me. Heaven bound, forget now, right? So Buddhism taught me to be present even when the present moment was agony. I was drawn to interconnectedness of Buddhism, something transcendentalism really started for me. I was drawn to Buddhism for mindfulness, meditation, which helped me develop the self-awareness, acceptance, self-compassion I never got from Christianity. Though Christianity, from the Buddhist lens, I've learned higher power awareness, trust with my higher power, surrendering, and having grace, especially for myself. I heard once someone say, use Buddhism to be a better whatever you are. And that's really stuck with me for a very long time. I have suffered countless times from a child and continue to suffer the pains and toils of my life, past, present, and future, because anxiety is real. Christ died once for all to deliver us from sin and death and pain and suffering that afflict us here on earth, so we will not suffer in the afterlife. But I'm still present. How do I deal with it now? Buddha offered only imperfect practices and many lifetimes of hopelessness, bound by karma. Neither of these paths seem ideal, honestly. Buddha taught the root of suffering is attachment. So what had I held on to for so long? What did I struggle with? Well, that list is a mile long, and I could go on and on and on that. But as I shared earlier, I am bad was one of those negative cognitions that has just really fueled my suffering for so long. It has blocked me from receiving and experiencing some really great things, especially love and to be loved. I held on to hurt for far longer than I care to admit, and my faith in Christianity was tainted by this suffering. But I held on to it like holding on to an electric fence, high voltage one, right? I was never bad. I'm good. I've been good. I know now that my thoughts really plague me more than what it has done good for me. So Buddha says, nothing outside can pollute or purify you, but yourself, you must do it. Jesus says, nothing from the outside can contaminate a man. The things that come from the inside of the man contaminate the man. Matthew 15:10-20. I want to wrap up this experience by talking about the concept of reincarnation. This is usually something that can get under the skin of many people. You think you're going to be a fish or a tree or something after you die. Maybe, maybe not. Who am I to know? But let me leave you with these thoughts on the matter. I thought a lot about this after my accident. I literally died twice and was brought back to life. In Buddhism, suffering is inevitable. The goal is to work to detach. So basically, if you don't, you're going to continuously be rebirthed until you do. Christianity, suffering is the human destiny, but it is the gateway to resurrection, to be rebirthed into a new life. These thoughts contradict one another, as one is cyclic and the other is linear. It is the ancient Chinese philosophy of yin and yang, which describes how obviously opposite and contrary forces may actually be complementary. This is an important part of how I found my conclusion that allowed these two viewpoints to marry within my spirit, because they complemented each other with what I needed to exist in this life. So how I see it, for me, it's like this. Each experience or day or season or something like that, we go through, we die, and we're reborn or reincarnated. Is our body the same? Maybe, maybe not. Do you go to heaven or do you reach nirvana? Maybe, maybe not. But I ask you, what is your heaven? Is it a warm embrace? Is your nirvana that peace you feel when you heal old wounds of the past? The Erica that started January 17th, 2015, died that day. She suffered greatly and never found the freedom or liberation she ever desired. But she met her higher power, not in person, but in spirit. She was reborn into the same life in a new body that was far different from the familiar one she bore before. 1 leg, 4 wheels. I found purpose in my pain through my suffering. I remember thinking while I was pinned in between the two vehicles and then again in the hospital bed in agonizing pain, remember this. See, pain and suffering are not the same. I lived with this idea for many, many years. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. I lived my first life feeling pain and suffering were the same thing. They are not. My spirit lived in this cognitive distortion for 20 plus years, feeling hopeless and exhausted from the plague of my past and my hurt. But today, I've been rebirthed, reincarnated, and can say, insert Viktor Frankl because that's my favorite. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. I spend almost every day teaching and working with people to navigate through their pain and teach them to acknowledge the suffering they have endured, both at their own hands and the hands of others. I work to empower them to connect with themselves, with their higher power, and connect with them, other people, to find their own path to salvation or nirvana or whatever it is that path they choose. Sometimes this looks like trauma work. Sometimes it looks like attachment wounds. Sometimes it looks like substance use, grief. Sometimes it's existential crisis. Whatever it is, my pain and my suffering has led me to this life. here, today, in this moment. One that I would gladly relive to get to where I am today. I have lived, I have died, I have loved, and I have lost. Yet, it is the spiritual freedom which cannot be taken away that makes life meaningful and purposeful. Viktor Frankl. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you for being our teacher. Thank you for sharing your truth. So, as we continue our journeys, that we may discover our truth. It's now time for the offering, and we're going to have music by Forrest and Florian. And I need to find my place in this book that's got so many pages. Here we go. This congregation and the work we do is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who contribute. The offering is a sacrament of the free church. You may place your donation in the plate on the way out, or use the QR code on the screen, or donate via our website. As we enjoy the music, the offering will be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values. we use them wisely in the service of our congregation and of our community. And so now we'll have some community news. We have a suggestion box, and it's a pretty one. I don't know who to thank for making it. Maybe Diane, you did a good job. It will be in the lobby. You can put your suggestions in here. And then if you so choose to put your name and or contact, that way we can connect and make sure we understand your suggestion so that we can do something about it. Is there anything else we should share about this for now? We're just going to see how it goes. Yeah. Yeah. We're still trying to navigate our way through and out one of these days, this pandemic, and some of the systems we had in place pre-pandemic, we've kind of gotten fractured, so we're trying to get reconnected on our flow of information, and that'll be a good way to do it, through that suggestion box. This is also the time that we would like to invite anyone who's present here or in the cyber world who want to inquire about membership to please do so. If you have questions about joining this congregation, please speak with a member of our membership team. Do we have membership team people here? Got a few hands up. Yep. So if you want to find one of those folks, get a hold of them after the service. You can also email our church office or talk to our board president, Christina Kruger. As always, you can find more community news by reading the monthly newsletter and the weekly email updates. And then there are bulletin boards out in the lobby areas. Please feel free to peruse those. You might discover something. And there's also a hard copy of our newsletter outside. And we have a Facebook page. Use it if you do social media. And with that, did Chris make it today? Yes, okay. Excuse me? Did I mess up? There's no messing up. Okay, we're just doing things out of order. That's what we're doing. We're not messing up. So thank you. We're going to have another number, and then we'll call on Chris in a few moments.
This is hymn number 18, What Wondrous Love. You can find it in your books, in the gray book. And we're going to play it through 3 times. So please come.
Now we will have the closing reading. Chris Mcgee, Suffering is a Gift.
For the record, that's a typo. It's Mcgee with a K. Suffering is a gift. In it is hidden mercy. Come, come, whoever you are. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Come, yet again. Come, come. But listen to me. For one moment, quit being sad. Hear blessings dropping their blossoms around you. I closed my mouth and spoke to you in 100 silent ways. Rumi.
Thank you, Chris. And we will now bid farewell to those who have joined us online. We hope you found this service meaningful, and we invite you to join us again. Be well and go in peace.